Body fluids and circulation from grade 11. Firstly, let's see what are body fluids. So first things first, what are body fluids? Body fluids are the liquids that circulate in our body and help in transport of nutrients, gases, hormones and wastes. So again, what are body fluids? Again, fluids. Fluids in physics are both liquids as well as gases, but we'll be focusing on liquids. So body fluids are the liquids that circulate in our body and help in the transport of nutrients, gases, hormones and waste. So body fluids are of two types. Number one, it's blood, and number two, it is lymph. These are the two types of body fluids that you will be learning in this chapter. Now, what do they help in transport? They help in the transport of nutrients and then gases. Which gases? Nitrogen, oxygen and carbon dioxide. Then hormones as well as waste. Blood carries waste to the kidneys for excretion. Now we will be looking at blood. Now, blood has various components. And what are the components? So firstly, blood is a connective tissue made up of plasma and formed elements. Now, in the blood, 55% of the components are plasma and 45% are the formed elements. So what is plasma? Plasma is a straw-colored fluid. Straw-colored means a palish yellow color. Straw-colored fluid. And it contains water, proteins, hormones and wastes. Now, what are formed elements? As the name suggests, they are formed and they are elements. So what are the formed elements? The formed elements are of three types. And for memory, you can name it, or the code will be RWP. So what do you mean by RWP? R stands for red blood cells. W stands for white blood cells and P stands for platelets. Now, we have learned in the lower classes what RBC, WBC and platelets are. RBC called as the red blood cells. So from the name, you need to get what is its function. Red blood cells gets its red color from hemoglobin. Hemoglobin. So make sure you don't forget the spelling, hemoglobin. So red blood cells contain hemoglobin, and hemoglobin helps in the transport of oxygen. And hemoglobin has no nucleus. This is what you need to study about the red blood cells. Now, what is WBC? Again, as the name suggests, W, white. Now, white is because it does not have hemoglobin, so no hemoglobin. Now, what does white blood cells do? They fight infections or diseases. They fight infections, diseases, viruses, etc. There are various types of WBCs that you'll be seeing in that yellow box in the textbook. For example, neutrophils, lymphocytes, etc. Now, what are platelets? So from the name, platelets. Plates are solids, right? Plates are solid substances that you use to eat. Platelets help in blood clotting. Blood clotting is an important function or an important process that happens in our body, and this blood clotting will come for 2 marks in exams, and I will make a separate video on the whole formation or the whole step of blood clotting. So this is all that you need to know about the blood components. Nextly, let's look at blood groups. So what are blood groups? Just like the name, groups of blood, the different groups of blood. So blood is grouped on the basis of antigens on the RBCs. So special substances or special structures will be found on some of the RBCs in humans, and the antigens can be of different shapes and different types. Now, there are two blood grouping or two naming systems for blood. Number one is the ABO system. Now, if you're wondering what the antigens are, I'll be discussing that as well in another video. So let's go to blood grouping, that is ABO system. So in ABO system, blood is named as A, blood group A, blood group B, blood group AB, and blood group O. This is the main classification in ABO system. Now, in your birth certificate, you might find negative A or positive A, positive B or negative B, etc. So what does that mean? The positive and negative sign are given by the second type of grouping system called as the Rh factor. So Rh factor tells us about if the blood group is positive or negative. A positive blood group will be having Rh positive, and the negative will be having Rh negative. The Rh is coming from the monkey name Rhesus. Monkey name Rhesus. So again, the wrong blood transfusion can be dangerous due to the antigen and antibody reaction. I'll be discussing all that in another video. So stay tuned for antigens and blood clotting. These two are really important in blood. Now, whatever the blood flow in heart, we know heart has 4 chambers: the right ventricle, the right atrium, the left ventricle, and the left atrium. Now, how does blood flow in the heart? Well, when blood is collected from the body, the blood goes through the right atrium and then to the right ventricle, finally to the lungs. Now, from the lungs, the blood goes back. That is the second step. From the lungs, it goes through the left atrium to the left ventricle to the body. So this is how an easy way to memorize. First body, then whenever blood goes from the body, it goes to right, and then to the lungs. Why does blood go to the lungs? For getting oxygenated. Because of the presence of alveoli, the blood or the gases can be diffused between the alveolar walls and making the blood oxygenated. Once the blood is oxygenated, from the lungs, again see here, left to the body. So an easy trick, when it is from the body, it is always right. When it is from the lungs, it is always left. L. Easy tricks to understand this. And always remember, when the blood is coming from the right side of the body, it is deoxygenated or having carbon dioxide. And when it is coming from the left side, it is oxygenated or having oxygen. Next, what is lymph? Lymph is a colorless fluid. So lymph is a colorless fluid. Now what is blood? Blood is a colored fluid. It has red color, which tells that RBCs are more in number. So lymph is a colorless fluid. That means it does not have RBCs. Now, what are the functions of lymph? The functions of lymphs, the main function is to transport fats. And the second function, it provides immunity. So if it provides immunity and if it is a colorless fluid, then we can tell lymph mainly consists of WBCs, or from WBCs it contains lymphocytes. So from the name, lymph contains lymphocytes. This is a code again. Next, we have a topic called as the cardiac cycle. So what is the cardiac cycle and what are the important things or terms that you need to know from the cardiac cycle? So just like the name suggests, cardiac, heart, cycle. So the continuous flow in a circular motion of heart. Now, the continuous flow of what? The continuous flow of blood. So the cardiac cycle tells us about the transport of blood in a circulatory path from the heart. Now, there are various things that you need to know. Firstly, there is something called as a joint diastole, atrial, systole, and ventricular systole. Joint diastole, atrial systole, and ventricular systole. Diastole means relax. Systole means contract. Again here systole means contract. So the cardiac cycle comprises of a joint diastole, atrial systole, and ventricular systole. Joint diastole is when both the atrium and the ventricle, they relax at the same time. When they relax at the same time, blood fills up in both the atrium and the ventricular, and that is for 0.4 seconds. Now here, atrial systole, the atrium contracts. When the atrium contracts, the ventricle relaxes, so ventricle will be filled with what? The blood. So atrial systole will be for 0.1 second. And then ventricular systole, when ventricle contracts, the atrium will be relaxed, and the ventricular systole will be for 0.3 seconds. Now if you total all of this, you will get it as 0.8 seconds. This is the value or the time of one cardiac cycle. And if this is the timing, then in a heart, the heart will beat 72 times per minute. So per minute, the heart beats 72 times. Now, there are two terms that you need to know from the topic of cardiac cycle. One is the stroke volume. What is the stroke volume? Stroke volume is when during a cardiac cycle, each ventricle pumps out approximately 70 milliliter of blood. Now, when ventricle pumps out the 70 milliliter of blood, it is called as a stroke volume. So, ventricle pumps out 70 milliliter of blood. This is what you need to know from stroke volume. The second thing that you need to know is a cardiac output. What is a cardiac output? A cardiac output is when the formula will be stroke volume into heartbeat. So, if the heartbeat of a person is 82 times per minute and you multiply it with the stroke volume is 70 milliliter. This won't be asked for question, but I'm just giving you an example. This equation or this will give you the cardiac output. This is called as a cardiac output. You just need to know what the stroke volume and cardiac output is and this formula. Now, what is cardiac output defined as? It is defined as the volume of blood pumped out by each of the ventricles per minute. It is basically 5000 milliliters or 5 liters in a healthy individual. So if the person is unhealthy, it can be either below 5000 milliliter or above 5000 milliliter. This is what you need to know from the cardiac cycle. The next topic in the textbook is electrocardiogram. ECG, electrocardiogram. So what is electrocardiogram? So just as given in the textbook, in most movies, in most of the hospitals, you might have seen some machines making a few sounds as the patient goes into a cardiac arrest, like beep, beep, and then beep. Yeah, that is the instrument used for measuring the person's blood or flow. That is, there are two things that you need to know: electrocardiograph and an electrocardiogram. So the machine that gives out the sound beep beep beep, that is called as the electrocardiograph. electrocardiograph. What is it used for? It is used for obtaining an electrocardiogram. So electrocardiograph gives us an electrocardiogram. Now what is a standard ECG? A standard ECG this is how you draw it. So a small line, a small tiny curve like this, and again a straight line, a small dip down, and a huge line upwards. Again it goes downwards to the same level of the other dip, again like this. Then it goes like this, a slightly larger curve, again straight line, and then again like this, a small curve. Now what do these different symbols tell us? We represent it as P and then Q, S, R, or P, Q, R, S, T. This is again P. This is repeating again. So P, Q, R, S, T. This is the standard electrocardiogram. In exams, they will give you this cardiogram and ask you to label P, Q, R, S, T. So how do you represent them? The P wave is the electrical excitation of the atria, or P wave is atrial excitation. So atrial depolarization. Now QRS, we don't take Q, R and S separately. We call this the QRS complex. So the QRS complex gives us the ventricular depolarization. Now what is T? The T wave. Again, T wave represents the return of the ventricles from excited to normal, or ventricular repolarization. So there is depolarization and repolarization. Depolarized means contract, and repolarized means relax. So relax. D, you don't have to know about D, just relax, that's enough. So atrial depolarization, atrial contraction, ventricular depolarization, ventricular contraction, ventricular repolarization, ventricular relaxation. This is about the electrocardiogram. And that is all about the chapter body fluids and circulation. And like I said, I will be giving the coagulation of blood as well as the different antigens in another video. So consider this as part 1, and I will be posting part 2. If part 1 helped you to understand half or more than half of body fluids, please like and subscribe to the channel, and yes, continue with part 2.